Are you on thyroid hormone replacement but still feel awful? Or are your thyroid levels normal, yet you have classic symptoms? Do you feel like you've tried everything and don't know what to do next? Do you wonder how you can get to the true root causes of autoimmunity or functional hypothyroidism? Are you holding out for a natural way to resolve your symptoms? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Heal Your Thyroid podcast. I'm Madeleine Lowry, a neural retraining specialist and founder of Twin Cities Neural Retraining. I work with clients in virtual sessions to resolve the hidden sources of stress behind chronic health issues, including low thyroid function. In this episode, I'm going to share about my own struggles with fatigue, aches and pains, weight gain, sensitivities, a very low tolerance for stress, gut issues, nutritional deficiencies, immune dysfunction, hair loss, and more. At one point, I thought that I had classic hypothyroid symptoms, but my lab values were normal, and I had to figure it out for myself. It took me years and some unconventional thinking, but I achieved my goal. After hearing my story, I hope that you will understand how I arrived at what I believe to be the ultimate root cause, which is the mind. If you are finally ready to address your thyroid issues in a new way, a mind-body way, then this podcast is for you. I'm going to connect the dots for you so that you will understand the real reasons you still have thyroid problems, despite everything you've tried and what you can do about it. Could neural retraining be your best next step to thyroid healing? Take our quiz at tcneuralretraining.solutions to find out. In this episode, I'm going to sum up about 12 years of my personal experience and what led me to becoming a neural retraining specialist, and how I've come to understand that the mind is the ultimate root cause of chronic health issues. I woke up one day at about age 40 and realized that although I had always thought of myself as a healthy person, it was no longer true. My dermatologist had found precancerous cells in a routine exam, and my very first mammogram had found a precancerous lump that had to be surgically removed. I was exhausted, anemic. I had chronic aches and pains, inexplicable weight gain, cluster headaches, extremely heavy menstrual bleeding, multiple sensitivities to foods, pollen, meds, and every time I caught a cold, it would last for weeks, and the congestion was so bad I had to sleep sitting up. Taking this tally of about a dozen health problems made me realize that I was not doing that well, and it was time to figure out why. When my hair started falling out, it seemed to point towards my thyroid. So I found an internist with some functional medicine training and had some labs run. Normal. My thyroid was fine, no problem there. Keep looking. A couple of years later, I saw a naturopath. She listened to my litany of niggling health issues, nothing really serious, but all of them incompatible with being a mother of 3 with a job, a house, 2 dogs, and a husband with a very demanding career. She said, "Let's start with your adrenals." She gave me some drops to try. At $300 per visit, I was extremely underwhelmed. A few years later, after training in nutritional therapy and running out of ideas, I went to an integrative clinic. They wanted to run a battery of expensive tests. I had about 20 tubes of blood taken for blood work. Samples were sent to 2 labs for mold testing alone, which cost over $800. I had a panel run to see what was growing in my gut, and more. I won't burden you with all the gory details. The answers came back. I was very anemic and had a host of other nutritional deficiencies, high levels of heavy metals, high mold counts, a very disrupted gut microbiome. And they said, "Come right back. We need to start working on these things. Your mold levels are off the charts." Long story short, I did not go back. I understood what the test showed, and that what they were telling me was true, but I did not find the answers satisfying. I felt that there was a root cause underlying all of these so-called root causes that we were missing, though I did not understand what it was. To my mind, there had to be a reason why a person who exercised regularly, ate a clean diet, with a pretty average level of stress, and who even meditated occasionally could be suffering health challenges in almost every system of the body. Yes, my immune system was dysregulated. And yes, I was not digesting or taking up nutrients well. Yes, my gut and my system was overloaded with pathogenic species, mold, and heavy metals. Yes, and yes, and yes. And also, why would this be true? My training as a nutritional therapy practitioner taught me that the body is designed to heal itself. So why wasn't it? Something was not adding up for me, and it would be years before I had my answers. About the only thing that had helped me over the years was removing foods from my diet. The first epiphany came from removing gluten. That resolved multiple symptoms for a couple of years, and then they started to come back. Then I removed dairy. Again, everything improved for about 18 months, and then came back. I removed more foods, and the duration of the improvements continued to shorten. Finally, I was on an autoimmune paleo diet, and even that was not good enough. Not knowing what more I could do is what sent me to get a degree in nutritional therapy. But as I said, though I learned a lot about anatomy and the systems of the body, and a lot about nutrition, lifestyle changes, and supplements, none of it seemed to have a significant impact on my health. I had come to the end of what diet changes and supplements could do for me. I needed a new direction. That new direction came along as a response to my clients' requests for allergy and sensitivity elimination techniques. Nothing in my training as an NTP had prepared me for this. I sought out and learned several techniques, and the best one I found was a basic method of neural retraining called DNRS, Dynamic Neural Retraining System. I started to teach a simplified method based on the principles of DNRS and had pretty good results, but only with about 70% of my clients. The remaining 30% were not improving even after practicing the scripts, affirmations, and visualizations for months. I was at a conference sometime after that and heard a talk about the ACEs study done by the CDC, Centers for Disease Control, and Kaiser Permanente that demonstrated a connection between childhood trauma and a lifelong predisposition to chronic emotional, mental, and physical health issues. I took the ACEs quiz myself. It's a simple 10-question survey. You get a point for each trauma factor that you experienced before the age of 18. And though I would never have considered myself to have suffered childhood trauma, I scored a 5 out of 10. Once I understood that unresolved trauma in the subconscious mind was the complicating factor, I started to wish for an advanced method of neural retraining to help me to get to the root causes more quickly with my clients. I didn't think that such a method existed, and I would not have known how to describe what I was looking for, but I came across it anyway. I saw a demonstration of the MAP method, and I knew instantly that this was the technique I was looking for. I will talk more specifically about the MAP method in another episode, but first let me backtrack and talk a little bit more about the ACEs study. This study, done in the 1990s, surveyed 17,000 participants with, as I said, 10 questions about trauma experiences before the age of 18. It is not a perfect survey. It does not make a distinction between trauma that happens once or trauma that happens over an extended period of time. It is a very simple assessment, and yet the study showed a clear correlation between significant childhood trauma, which was a score of 4 out of 10 or higher, and an increased lifetime risk of chronic health issues at the emotional level, such as anxiety, PTSD, depression. At the behavioral level, this could look like obsessions, compulsions, or addictions. And at the physical level, which could look like chronic health conditions, obesity, an elevated risk of early death. You can learn more about the ACEs study by Googling adverse childhood experiences and look for the Centers for Disease Control website. You can even take the quiz yourself and see how you score. As I said, it does not account for every possible type of trauma. And I have a much more extensive list in my own quiz because we have learned so much more about trauma since 1990, including the distinctions between big T trauma, the usual suspects, and the kinds of things assessed by this quiz, and also little t trauma, smaller or less significant sources of painful emotional experience. And finally, hidden trauma, or what we call LACs, the lack of emotional support or understanding during childhood, for example. You can take our quiz at tcneuralretraining.solutions. In the next episode, I will describe my understanding of why early life trauma has an impact on all levels of health for the rest of our lives. If you are interested in reading more about the impact of trauma, I recommend the book When the Body Says No by Dr. Gabor Mate and What Happened to You by Dr. Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey. Thanks for listening. If you found this episode intriguing, I'd like to invite you to join the Heal Your Thyroid, the Mind-Body Solution community on Facebook. If you learned something or were inspired, please listen again and remember to subscribe and leave a review. Content of this podcast, copyright 2024 by Twin Cities Neural Retraining. Music by Barbara Ben.